Hi guys, in today's video we're going to be doing a baking one. Well, technically it's not baking because there's not actually any baking involved, but it is a dessert. This is a dessert that's a particular favourite of mine. It's tiramisu, and it's so easy. It's one of those desserts that seems awfully complicated when you look at it and you see it on restaurant menus and that kind of thing, but it's an incredibly easy recipe to make. It's so easy even a student could make it. Say an art student, perhaps, for example, for no particular reason, but you know. So what we're going to need is a couple of large eggs. We're going to need some caster sugar. We're going to need some double cream, some mascarpone cheese, and some coffee, of course. One of the reasons I'm a big fan of tiramisu, and I've already pulled a couple of espresso shots which are cooling in a bowl there, and into that we place these and soak them. These are a particular type of biscuit. This kind of thing is known in the UK commonly as ladyfinger biscuits. They're like a hard sponge, but the ones you want are these, which are an Italian one, and they are pronounced, I believe, Savoiardi. So hopefully my Italian friend Martina can either applaud or correct me on that one. So over to the bench, and then we're going to start with the steps and start making some tiramisu. Right, so we're going to start by extracting a couple of double espressos, and don't worry if you don't have an espresso machine and grinder and what have you, but if you can use proper fresh ground coffee, you'll get better coffee. It's that simple. So that's a couple of shots of espresso sitting there and cooling, and you see the crema dissipating on top of that. You'll probably note from other videos I am a bit of a coffee geek. Next thing we need to do is get a couple of egg yolks into this bowl here, and to do that I need to separate the egg whites from them. Now the easiest way to do that I've found is to crack open your egg and then just use your hands as a sieve. Make sure you've washed your hands, of course, goes without saying. And then we'll do the same with the other one. You can buy fancy separators that you crack your eggs into, which do this for you, but I just don't see the point really. So there's your 2 egg yolks from your large eggs. Then take a couple of teaspoons of caster sugar and your balloon whisk, and whisk these together until the sugar's fully incorporated and dissolved. We've got the egg yolks and the sugar mixed up, and a nice pale custard colour. Next thing in is the mascarpone cheese. So the full tub, 250 grams. Just dump the whole lot in there. Ideally this needs to be a little bit warmer than this is. This is fresh out of the fridge, so ideally it needs to be around room temperature, but it will still mix in just fine. Leave it out of your fridge for a little while before you do this, as I should have done before I started filming this video. Here we are so far. We've got the egg yolk and sugar and the mascarpone cheese all mixed together to a nice smooth creamy texture. Took a little longer to mix that in than it would normally do because, as I say, that was fresh out of the fridge. So do make sure that you've let yours sort of sit out of the fridge for a little while first. Next thing in is some double cream. Now this, you can see, is fairly solid. It's been whipped up, so it's fairly solid, but it's not as solid as you would use for icing a cake, for example. Basically you want it so it just starts to congeal together and stops being runny. And we need to pop this in. This is about 200 grams of double cream. The mascarpone is about 250 grams, a couple of egg yolks and a couple of tablespoons, heaped tablespoons of caster sugar so far. I tend to, when I'm making recipes that I have made before, or even once or twice, and unless the measurements are crucial, and in a tiramisu they're really not, because you can adjust things to suit your own taste, which is one of the reasons I love this pudding so much. Unless the measurements are crucial, I will tend to kind of eyeball things a bit, or just go on roughly measurements. But I will put the full recipe down below. I'll admit at this point as well, for those that are watching this that might be Gino D'Acampo fans, as I am, the suave Italian foodster that he is, I have shamelessly lifted this recipe from Gino D'Acampo, and I'm quite proud to admit it, because that man does good puddings, and this is pretty much his tiramisu recipe, which I have tried and favour above every other one that I've ever tried so far. So fold that in. I'm not going to go too mad with that, just until it's combined, so round and through the middle, round and through the middle, until it's all combined and you can't see any of the double cream there. Next thing up is flavouring. Now typically we would use Amaretto liqueur. I do not have any Amaretto liqueur. The last that I had was used up some time ago, and you can use other flavourings. You could use rum, you could use, if you've got particular alcohol you like the flavour of, you can use anything you like, really. Within reason, as long as you're not going to destroy the flavours of the coffee and such. Now, rum mixes well with coffee, for example. Amaretto liqueur mixes well with coffee, for example. I'm not a huge fan of boozy food, as a rule, because I tend to find that booze overpowers it. Now, in this case, this is probably the one exception. I actually like a tiramisu made with Amaretto liqueur. Because I don't have any, however, I'm not going to go and get any, so what I'm going to use is almond essence to flavour this. So this is the point where you would put in the Amaretto liqueur, and probably about a tablespoon. I'm going to put about half a tablespoon of almond essence into this, because of course it's much stronger. And then I will also be putting a bit of almond essence into the coffee before we dip the biscuits. So, same procedure with this, just fold it in like so. And you'll see now that this has gotten very pale indeed with the mascarpone and the whipped cream, the fresh cream. And will be resembling the topping that you will see on your typical supermarket tiramisu. But I guarantee you this will taste 100 times better than anything you will buy off a supermarket shelf with its soggy, cakey base. The last thing that needs to go into here are the egg whites, which we separated earlier, which are in this jug, and I'm going to whisk those up a little bit until they firm up, like you would for a meringue, but without the sugar. Back with the egg whites, which have been whisked up. Now, unless you have arms like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or want to have arms like Arnold Schwarzenegger, do yourself a big favour and don't use one of these by hand to try mixing it. Use an electric whisk, like this little fella here, for example, with a whisk attachment. This one is White Tatey Rogers, and there is a story behind that. So use an electric whisk, either handheld or otherwise, and whisk this until you can see that we've expanded from about that volume to about that volume. This is nice and light and aerated, and you can see there's lots of air pockets in there, and when it forms peaks it's about ready. The other test, of course, is if you can hold it upside down for a few seconds and it doesn't go anywhere, then you know you're good to go. So we need to scoop this into here and fold it in very, very carefully, because this is what's going to make the whole cream mixture very light and fluffy. Anyone that's familiar with making meringues will kind of recognise the texture of this. Of course, the only difference is it's less sort of solid and less glossy because it doesn't have the sugar in. So there we go with that one. And around and through, around and through. And as I say, very, very gently until this is incorporated and no more. Beautiful. You can see now, just by the wobble on that, how nice that actually is. We're now going to go on to the coffee and starting to layer the whole thing into a container. Now you can put these in individual ones, or you can put them in a large one like this and then just take a scoop serving, which is precisely what I'm going to do. So before I dip them into here, I'm going to take some more almond oil, essence even, not almond oil, almond essence, about half a dessert spoon. Give that a good mix up in the coffee, which has cooled and smells incredibly good. And then we're going to take our biscuits, Savoiardi. Let me say that again. Savoiardi. Hopefully I'm saying that right. We're going to take our biscuits and we're going to give them a quick dip in the coffee. A couple of seconds each side, just until they start to absorb and become a little bit squishy. Beautiful. So that's our first layer in there. What we'll do then is take a layer of our lovely cream and coat that. Good. Like so, and then we'll repeat the process with more of the biscuits. That's the second layer of biscuits, and that's where we are with that. So what we do now is add the next layer of cream. Making sure you smooth it round and fill in all of the gaps. I highly recommend, by the way, these silicone rubber spatulas, because they clear out a bowl like nothing else can. Now this is the kind of thing I love as an adult, that I would have absolutely hated as a kid, because it would have meant, of course, that I never got to scrape out all of the bowls that I got to scrape out when my mum used to bake. So give that a bit of a smooth, paint a fancy design in it if you are so inclined, if you are artistically inclined, that is. And at this point we pop this into the fridge to chill for at least a couple of hours, preferably a little bit longer. And then, prior to serving it, the whole thing will get a dusting of cocoa powder and it'll be good to go. Here we are with the nicely chilled, fresh out of the fridge pudding, and the only thing remaining is a liberal sprinkling of cocoa powder. If I can find my sieve, which I can. Now it's important to do this after it's been chilling in the fridge rather than before you put it in the fridge, because the moisture in there will just destroy it. And one final thing that I'm going to do, just for that added bit of chocolatey goodness, is take a little bit of dark chocolate and the grater. There's a homemade tiramisu, a very easy dessert as you can see. This dessert and this video is dedicated to my friend Mickey, for reasons that she will know. I'm off to eat this now, and I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for watching.